And we are emotional beings. Many years ago, I used to hate emotion. Give me an emotional woman and I'll run. You know, I couldn't stand tears or too hysterical. But eventually, I began to learn a great deal from my clients, from myself, from my wife, that emotions are not only present, but they're healthy. When you know how to deal with them, how to learn through them, you see? And the strength that you will derive from dealing with your fears, with your emotions, is tantamount to godliness. It's so amazing, because it brings out the compassion, the ability to feel and to know much deeper. Now, the key question is, how do we experience fear? Okay, this is the crucial point. Okay, so let's go back to what we said before. Fear feels like contraction. Fear feels small. You know, you want to escape, you want to run away. You don't like it the way it is. You see? So you contract. So now, let's assume you're feeling some kind of fear. There's a contraction in you. What do you do? How do you experience it? Well, first of all, when we have a fear, we want to escape it. And a part of us is saying, I don't want this. I don't like it. You see? I want to run away from it. So, do the opposite. Take a deep breath and sit with it. We've said this many times before, but the key question now is to understand what that means. To listen to that. Now, how do you listen? I was with Sylvia today. We were having lunch, and she wanted me to go a little deeper into this, and because this is one thing I feel that most people fail to see, not only to apply it, but also because they do not understand the process. So I put my finger on her hand like this. And I said, now feel this. And of course she feels it. But the mind says, oh, there's pressure with the finger. No, put that away. Forget the finger, forget the pressure. You see? Forget Burt putting his finger there. Forget the hand receiving the pressure. Just feel it as it is. Are you understanding me? Just feel it. Now, if you feel it and you don't say pressure, you don't say finger, you don't say hand, just feel it as it is, you'll find that what you called pressure or pain before diminishes. It becomes just a feeling. Neutral. Totally neutralized, okay? So what is happening is that you're allowing that negative feeling to move. The move, you're removing its rigidity, its contraction. You see? You're not holding it in other words. You allow it to move. So as you allow it to move, to give it space to move, you are expanding. You see what I mean? You're expanding yourself. You're not judging. You're not doing anything. You're not making anything wrong. You are expanding in it. And in that expansion, you're experiencing the love that you have always been, but never gave a chance to experience, because we think, if I'm going to be loving. So we see ourselves as loving and we act loving. No, that's not loving. Loving is a very natural thing. It's not something you assume or do it because a teacher says you must be loving. Just like going to a child and says, be loving. That's a prostitution of the child's behavior, because the child has to be itself. You see? You don't tell the child how to behave or what to do. You see? And if the child is not loving, there is something in the direction, in the atmosphere, in the energy that is stifling that love in that child. You see? So we do the same, and we allow that to flow, to move. And as you allow it to move, it automatically reaches love, no matter how frightening it is. And I've applied it to many experiences that I've had. I remember many years ago, this is a long time ago, I was an avid reader, and I read every book I can think of, whether it's metaphysics, astrology, you name it, Rosicrucians, and the Mayans. I belong to all these things, yoga, I practiced for many years, and I went through the whole thing. And one day, and this was after getting to know Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, his teachings, and after a while, I went into a very flat type of feeling. I went flat. I said, well, I know all the words, but I just don't feel alive. I don't feel good. I feel flat. And then I received a great shock through grace. I became depressed. And I went through a very bad feeling. I know all the words, I know all this, blah, blah, blah. I've read everything, but I just don't feel good. I don't feel anything is happening. I don't feel alive, you see? And then I realized that all I knew were what I've read and what I've been told. I thought that I knew it, but I didn't really know it. What I knew is what I've read and what people told me, you see? And I quote Jesus and I quote Buddha, and I figured, oh, that's beautiful. So I know it, you see? And then I realized that I don't know anything. I'm really stupid. And the moment I received that shock, and I went through a depression and a really awful feeling, and it stayed with me for quite a while, something else was happening. I began to notice things I never noticed before. I was open to experience. You see? Something in me became alive. I wanted to experience directly. And I began to notice the flowers on the side of the road I never noticed before. I experienced colors I never saw before. I even noticed people's voices and tones and the way they walked and the way they looked, which I never noticed before because I took for granted. And I began to learn in a whole new way. That's what I call listening. You see, that's what listening is. Listening is you're learning every moment because every moment is rich. So we can say that fear is a future based on what you believe is the past. Okay? The past has created a certain image, a conditioned response in your nervous system. Unconsciously, of course. And you carry that into the future. Oh, I fall in love. I wonder if he's going to leave me like every time happened before. You see? Or you keep on repeating from the past, you bring it into the future. And that's what fear is. That there's one thing that fear never does. It cannot exist in the moment. Did you know that? Fear cannot exist in the moment. Now, what we call love is pure moment. Total now. Complete now. You see? And when you live in the now totally, there's an expansion. And there's an absence of self, a small s. Absence of self. And there's an awareness of presence. So, if you do the same, imagine now what would happen. If you have a fear, the greater the fear, the greater the catalyst it is. If a person were to be terrified of death at the moment, and they were to face that fear at that moment, which is the highest form of fear, fear of death, if they were to face it at the moment of impending death, they would awaken automatically. The question does not arise whether you would or not. It's automatic.